My name is Anj Braggs, and I'm the Grants and Outreach Manager for the Oklahoma Visual Arts Coalition. And I manage the Thrive Grants program, which was brand new last year. And this info session is purely to inform you all about the granting program, how we introduced it the first year, how we're able to do it in the first place, where we get the funding, and how we're going to do it this year. And it's going to look a little different this year because that trial year taught us a lot about how we need to distribute this to the artists in our actual community in Oklahoma. So thank you all for being here. I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And just so you know, towards the end, there will be Q&A. So if you have any questions, jot them down or plop them in the chat, and I can get to them when the presentation ends, which should only take about 20, 25 minutes, maybe 30. At least that's how long it took last year. So I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my screen. All right. Coming in loud and clear, Thrive Grants, woo! Second year of this program. So without further ado, let's get started. So how are we able to provide this $60,000 to artists that we weren't able to provide before? And that is through our partner, the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts. They were established in 1987 in accordance with Andy Warhol's will, and their mission is purely the advancement of the visual arts. So they work through other arts nonprofit organizations to distribute money from the foundation. So underneath the Andy Warhol Foundation, there is this umbrella. There is the Regional Regranting Program. And that is the actual program that is giving us this money to give out to artists in our state. So I just said the Andy Warhol Foundation was established in 1987. Well, they created in 2007 the Regranting Program. And its whole purpose was to recognize and support the movement of independently organized, public-facing, artist-centered activity that animates local and regional art scenes, but that usually lies beyond the reach of traditional funding sources. So they do that by administering these funds to nonprofit visual arts centers like us and making sure that those organizations' mission statement aligns with funding experimental projects and collaborative undertakings. Just a little bit more about the Regranting program. So in 2020, they actually expanded and they gave us for the first time $100,000 to distribute as emergency grants. And we did in 2020. And so after they did that, after they just dispersed 1 million in funds to their 16 original regranting partners, they doubled their number of regranting partners. So now we're 1 out of 32. And after they gave us those emergency grants, we just keep reapplying and we continue to get that $100,000 each year to contribute to the Thrive Grants program. So this is the second year we've distributed it outside of emergency grants and outside of the first year. So what exactly are Thrive Grants? So we had some rebranding this year. We have a totally new logo made by the famous Dylan Bradway from Oklahoma City. And Thrive Grants, it really builds upon our existing dedication to support artist-led initiatives in the state of Oklahoma, but it's giving us money to do more than we have ever been able to do before as far as funding artists and creative projects. So this new program encourages artists to take risks and engage audiences in new ways. We believe that throughout Oklahoma, there's creativity and potential to push the boundaries of our state's visual culture. And this fund will offer artists an ability to thrive in ways that wasn't previously possible through our quarterly grants. So we already give out grants every single quarter for anything from professional basics to creative projects. And those usually will fund educational endeavors, solo exhibition experiences, travel experiences in educational settings for art, and the basics of getting started. But Thrive really goes beyond everything we're already funding to create a whole new category of funding. So this year, it's going to look exponentially different because last year we awarded 12 artists $5,000 each. And what we noticed is that many of those artists ended up having to fundraise and acquire more funds to actually complete their projects, and or we seed funded quite a few. And there was also a few that could manage within the $5,000 budget, but there was like half and half. So it started feeling like, do we really want to just seed fund these bigger creative collaborations, or do we want to offer an even bigger grant? So we decided this year we're going to fund 8 artists in this state, and they can choose between either a powerhouse grant for $10,000 each or an innovator grant for $5,000 each. So the innovator grant would be better suited for artists that are maybe not having as many collaborations in their project, maybe can do most of it themselves. They just need some funding to get this accomplished. Maybe their project is solely serving like a small niche community. That is totally fine. And if they can get everything done in that 5,000, they should shoot for that. That's going to be the same application, just less money. And the $10,000 grant is going to be great for projects that have big budgets, probably bigger than $10,000, but even for projects that have a budget of $10,000 or less. And these projects are usually going to be more heavily collaborative. There's going to be more people getting paid, more things going on, a bigger community impact and reach, and you just need more funding. So I would say if you're creating your budget for your project and it's exceeding $5,000, then you could probably apply for Powerhouse. But you also want to make sure that you're not paying yourself 50% of the budget. So moving forward, what are the requirements of this grant? How can I apply? What can I do to apply, as far as if I apply, what is required of me, basically? So what makes you eligible? So if you are thinking about applying for this grant, your project needs to have a central focus on the visual arts. We've had some issues with this in the past because it can be, people define this differently. But OVAC is solely focused on serving visual artists in Oklahoma. And what that means is if your practice is firmly rooted in another discipline like dance, theater, music, industry filmmaking, then you are not eligible to apply for this grant. Now, that being said, there's certain forms of visual art that touch and dabble into those other fields that I just mentioned, but that doesn't mean it's firmly rooted in a completely different practice. So we're not going to be funding bands and musicians. We're not going to be funding people that are, I'm going to this huge film festival and I have this big production and this big narrative movie that I'm making. And we're not going to be funding people who are going to be performing at the Performing Arts Center and things like that. It's going to be more so for grassroots artist-led initiatives, because we really want artists to feel empowered to do big things like these other big industries. And visual artists in Oklahoma specifically need this support. So that's why we have a central focus on the visual arts. So that being said, another requirement is public accessibility. Last year, we kept saying public facing, and I think that confused a lot of people. So I was hoping that the change in the wording makes this a little bit easier to understand. Your project just needs to be publicly accessible. So it can't just be for you. It's got to be for the public. And what that means too is not that it only has to serve this grand community. Like I said earlier, it can serve a niche community, but you need to identify your audience and it needs to be publicly accessible to them. Another requirement is that the project must take place in Oklahoma. So we're one of 32 of these Regranting partners, and OVAC's mission is to serve artists in this state. So when we took on this grant, they understood that, and that is still the case. We want this to fund and serve artists in Oklahoma and also creatively cultivate the landscape of Oklahoma specifically. So you can't be doing this in another state. And also the project has to be finished before the end of the award year, which is basically 365 days from when you get the award. So if you're thinking about your project in your head and it's going to take you 3 years, then you're probably not eligible for this grant. Now, if you think that there's a portion of this 3-year project that you have in your mind that could be funded by this grant, you could separate and start with part 1. And then you could reapply for a new iteration of said project. So we don't want to create stipulations that reduce the success of artists in the state. So we're just trying to be careful that we're being fair and giving everyone an opportunity, and at the same time, not holding anyone back. And also another requirement is that this grant, we do like to do a covenant after the 1 year of the award year and have artists come and speak on their projects and present them to the public. So that's just like a 1-day thing where you come and talk about your project and you get a template from the grants manager. So we give you everything you need to succeed. You just show up and present. And another requirement is for collaborations. So if you're collaborating with people, entities, other individuals, if you're applying, you have to serve as the lead applicant, because there just has to be one person that communicates with OVAC, that communicates about the finances and signs the contracts and sends in the W-9 and manages the funds, because we can't work with all the people on your team. So one person has to serve as the lead applicant. So whoever that decides to be is spearheading the project. And the lead applicant and the majority of the collaborators on your team must reside in Oklahoma. What that means is you could have some teammates that don't live here, but as long as the majority of people working on this project with you reside in Oklahoma, you are fine. Also, you got to be 21 years of age or older. This is the big time. So who is not eligible? All that being said, it can be like, okay, I'm eligible, but then like we got to also touch on who isn't eligible just in case. So if you're 21 years or younger, obviously not. And if you're enrolled in an MFA or BFA, so if you're enrolled in seeking like a arts degree during the award year, you're not eligible. A lot of that has to do with not having a university influence over your project. This needs to be for independent artists. If you are a 501c3 organization or a for-profit corporation, you are not eligible to apply. But if you're an artist with an LLC, you are eligible. So you can profit off your business as an artist and still apply for this. And also to note, if you are working with a 501c3, that is also okay. They just can't apply as the lead applicant. If you are unable to attend the awards presentation at the end of the award year or unable to present, you are not eligible. We know it's hard to kind of project into the future and see if you are available, but this year it's going to be on July 16th. And hopefully we can standardize it and make it July 16th every year. If that doesn't seem to be a problem this year, we'll probably end up doing that. So that'll be in your contract if you are accepted. And if you're a lead applicant and you don't live in Oklahoma, you're not eligible. And this wasn't we weren't able to say this last year, but this year, if you were a successful applicant from 2021, you are not eligible to apply this year. There is a 1-year waiting period to give everyone a fair shot. Now, that being said, after that 1-year waiting period, you can apply again. You can't just copy and paste the same project, but if it's a new iteration of said project and an expansion of an older project that you used Thrive funding for in the past, like I said, we don't want to hold artists back. So you will be considered and you can apply with a new iteration. That being said, our committee is going to prioritize new and ambitious work. So if you're in a pool of other people that are coming out with new, interesting ideas, they're going to trump your idea. But if you're in a pool where, let's say, there's a lot of recycled ideas, then yours could float to the top. It just depends on who you're competing against, like always. So what are we looking for? We try to spell it out for you all, and I'll show you as we move through this presentation where we spell everything out. But we really are looking for ambitious projects that could be career altering in nature. And it says in the scoring matrix, career altering potential, and that really does just mean like, this is big for you. This is something that's not just easy, that you've done a million times before. This is kind of new, and it's probably going to skyrocket your career or give you attention that you didn't have before. It doesn't have to change everything, but ambition means it's not a cakewalk. There needs to be a display of artistic excellence and cultural significance. And what that means is we don't want you making anything that's culturally insensitive. And in fact, if you do touch on culture, make sure that it's significant and meaningful. And artistic excellence is also just showing that you have a track record of being an artist. You have a track record of working well with community members. You have a track record of artistic excellence. And this is an obvious next step for you. Community impact is somewhat self-explanatory. You can impact your tiny niche community, or you can impact a large community, but this project needs to be focused on serving the community and not just serving yourself. And ability to complete. So we read your ability to complete projects based on how well you've researched. So is your timeline feasible? Does it make sense? Is your budget detailed and well-researched? Are your upload materials contributing to the story and filling in holes? So honestly, if you present yourself well on paper, it'll look like you are fully capable of organizing and getting this done. So we will show priority consideration for these 3 topics. So if you're serving an underserved community, what that means is, so if you're showing at Factory Obscura, I say that because a lot of people know it in Oklahoma City, that is a heavily served artistic area. It's in the OKC metro. There's always art there, always shows there. So that's not serving the underserved. Now, we don't want to say if it's in OKC metro that means it's not an underserved region. There are regions of Oklahoma City that are underserved too. Maybe in the east side and in Tulsa, like technically north side is definitely underserved. So you can be in metro areas and still serve the underserved. And automatically, if you're outside of the bigger cities, you're most likely already serving an underserved population. Now, Edmond and Norman don't really count. Those are, I think, still in OKC Metro too. But if you're serving Shawnee, that's underserved as far as art. The rural communities in Oklahoma are definitely thirsty for art. And we will show priority consideration to projects that collaborate or include Black and Indigenous or people of color. So you could be a BIPOC person yourself, or you could be serving that community. And if you are doing that and you are not BIPOC, you do have to realize the cultural significance of that and mention it. So be aware of who you are and how you show up in spaces. And collaboration. So we do think collaboration boosts creative outcomes and strengthens creativity. So we encourage it. And if your project is collaborative and not just you doing it all, you will probably be shown priority consideration. So there was a lot to take in there, but you can see all of this information on thrivegrants.org, which we're going to visit in just a few moments. And we have the scoring matrix on there. One of the few organizations, and I think the only one in the 32 regranting partners dispersing these foundational grants, to even have a scoring matrix like this and to show you how we're going to score. So the committee is literally given a spreadsheet that aligns with the scoring matrix, and they're asked to score each applicant on these topics. So career altering potential, all the things I just talked about, artistic merit, community impact, blah, blah, blah. So you can revisit all this stuff. So when you write up your project and you read through the scoring matrix, if you're reading through and you're like, I'm not hitting any of these points, or I maybe would hit poor or adequate, then you're probably going to be scored that way. But you do have to consider, like, people on committees, they're from different backgrounds, they're different ages, they have different opinions. You never know how someone's going to see your project. So keep your mind open and try to set yourself up for as much success as possible. So here is our timeline. Here we are right here with the free info session. And as time moves on, we are providing you as many resources as we possibly can to prepare you to apply for this grant. And I really want to encourage everyone that's on this call, really apply, because this year we're probably going to have even maybe as many or maybe even fewer people applying. It's a very intimidating thing to apply for. And when I say there might be fewer, it's because I know that there's not that many visual artists up to applying for grants this size in the state. So you have a unique position. And also all the people that applied last year can't apply this year. So that's why I say there could be few. This could be like a really good shot for you to get your foot in the door. So timeline wise, we have some drop-in office hours. There's a registration link on the website. I just put it up there. Sorry, it wasn't there before. And what that means is basically on May 24th, you can just drop in from 4 to 6 whenever. I'll just be sitting there doing my thing, and it'll just kind of be a pool of people. There might be just you, there might be a few. People can come and go and ask the questions they want to ask. This is going to be ideal if you don't have time to really prepare all of your materials and don't need really hyper detailed feedback, and you just like have some general questions, or maybe just like specific questions about your project specifically as you've been working on your proposal. So that'll be a good, just easy peasy, drop in, ask some questions, pop in, pop out. Now, if you are super serious and really worried and want feedback and want something really specific to, like, Anj, I want you to read through my proposal. I want you to look through my uploads. I want you to look at my timeline and my budget and give me like critical feedback. Then you need to set up an appointment with me. And you can do that by emailing me. So when you get a little closer to the date, but those office hours by appointments are going to be May 24th to May 26th. So I'm going to give you 3 days basically where you can set a day and time with me, and you just send me your materials and we sit down and talk about it. And what we used to do last year, we would just do like 30-minute sessions. But when I noticed that was like really stressful and I felt rushed, and I want to be able to give you all as much focused time as you want. So if you do sign up for that, then I will allot at least an hour of time with you, so we can really work through the nitty-gritty of your proposal. And OVAC staff does not actually select. That's why I am allowed to do this, but I do select the committee. So application deadline is June 1st. So basically a little less than a month now to be considering applying for this grant. And July 16th is when we're going to have our 2021 awards reception. Plus, we're also going to announce the winners. So I think what we're actually going to do is, like, the day before, we're going to at least announce to the awardees that they got it. And we'll also invite them to the awards reception. So at least give them a day. But if they can't make it, that's fine. But if they want to come, that's great too, because we're going to announce them at the event. So we can celebrate them as well as we are celebrating the projects that have just come to a close. And then the grant award period starts. So basically, after I get all your materials from August 2022 to June 2023 is the amount of time you have to complete your project. You can complete your project early on. You can take the whole year to do it. Your project might need a bunch of like pre-planning, and then it just happens like right before June. Doesn't really matter. As long as it just happens within the award year, we're good. And then award presentations, July 16th. So as you can see, those are kind of wonky, but you know what I'm saying. So let's talk about what you need to apply for this grant, what you need to have prepared so you can get the scope of how much work this is going to be. And if it's worth your time, we do understand that it takes considerable time to apply for things like this. And we want to encourage you to do it, but we also want you to know that since it does take time, only do it if you feel like, you have time to. So, and it's a great learning experience, especially if you sign up for the office hours, you're going to learn a lot. Even if you don't get it, you have to look at it like, I learned so much from that process. And if you don't get it, you can still apply for a quarterly grant, and who knows, you might get that. They're a lot easier to apply for than this one. So what we need from you all when you're sitting down to apply for this is we need the lead applicant's contact information. That's probably something you already just have floating around in your head. We need to know the impact region of your project. So where is it going to be? We need the 200-word project summary, so just like a little blurb about what you're trying to do. And then we start asking you some more detailed proposal questions like, so who is your audience? Identify them, and how do you intend to engage them? What do you want the community impact to be? And then what's your desired outcome of this project? And why is it important for you to receive funding now? Like, a lot of you probably have ideas that you've had and been sitting on for years. So why now? And we also want to know if you have any potential or secured venues. So indicate which ones you do have or don't have. It's okay if you don't have any secured venues, but having an idea of where you can do something is just, that means you've done your research, and that looks good. So, and then we get kind of like into the nitty gritty. We're going to want like a 200-word bio for you as the lead applicant. And we're also going to want a 200-word bio for your collaborators. So the reason we want that is so we can know who you're working with and why, and the part that they're going to play in your project. And if you're working with an entity or an organization, you could put their mission statement or something like that, and indicate how they're going to be serving on the project with you. And then after that, this is probably some of the harder stuff outside of writing, having a detailed timeline and budget. So the timeline is really like detailing when are some key dates for you, deadline for print, doing some canvassing in November. January is going to be dedicated to this, and it can be specific dates. It can be month, but it's not going to look really good if you go broader than a month. So it needs to look like you figured this out, you know what you need to do, you have your timeline prepared, and you're going to try and stick to it the best of your ability. And your budget is similar. So what are you going to need to get this done? And how much does what you need cost? So don't have the committee sitting there asking questions like, it just says materials and $300. What does this mean? Get into detail. What are you buying? It just looks better if you're fully transparent over being vague. And then the file upload section. So then we're going to want the lead applicant's CV or resume and their artist statement and relevant images and image list. So you can upload like a separate image list, and some people will upload like a PDF with the image and then like the image list underneath. I think both are fine. And when I say relevant images, let's say your project is, just for the sake of time, your project is serving ducks in your community. And the point is for you to get bread and take them to these ponds and feed it to the ducks. So then I'll be like, okay. And then when you see these relevant images, maybe you've already worked with ducks before. So maybe you have some images of like projects you've done where you're at the park feeding ducks, and success stories of ducks that have been well fed and they're happy and living their best life. So relevant images. And so that could mean either from lead applicant or even collaborators. So if you're using someone else that's a part of your team and they are a muralist, and maybe you're doing a project at a school and a part of it, one component is a mural. So we probably want to see, can this collaborator paint a mural? Yeah, like share that. That's evidence. The uploads are evidence. So now I want to kind of go through here and show you that the portal walkthrough and budget template, like I said, we try to provide as many opportunities for you all as possible, many resources So when you're here, 2022 applications are open. Read all of this. This info session is going to go here when it's done. But as you can see right here, we have like a template. You can download a template. There's frequently asked questions. You need to read those. We're going to look over those a little bit during this presentation too. And grant writing tips. So just good rules of thumbs, things that you should know about, and an application walkthrough. So it kind of walks you through what you're going to need, which I've already kind of done, but you know, it doesn't hurt to have extra. And let's look at the budget a little bit, because I know that's intimidates a lot of people. But when you go to the budget, you should be able to download from Dropbox, and all of the notes are from OVAC staff that they're highlighted, and you should read them and then erase them. This is just a guide. So I'm even putting you right here, like artist stipend. We want you to pay yourself. This is normally 20 to 30% of your budget. Plywoods, be specific and indicates well-researched proposal. So all these little things are little notes and tips for you. All right, let's go back to the presentation. So all of that is on the apply page on thrivegrants.org. And now I want to share you some examples from last year, some of the people that won't be able to apply again, but I wanted to show you an example of someone who could use all $5,000 and someone who had maybe like a $50,000 budget and we seed funded. So these are our grant recipients from 2021. So Shelly Goodmanson's a good one because her whole budget was $5,000. So she was able to get her project done with that amount of money. And she was serving a community that was outside of the typical communities that get served. So Faces of the Community is a twofold. It's a creation of clay self-portraits followed by an art gallery style experience for our rural community. The community participants needing no experience will be invited and encouraged to attend clay self-portrait sessions where all materials and instruction will be provided. The project will conclude in a public gallery type exhibition of self-portraits created entirely by the public for the public, a representation of our community of farmers, teachers, professionals, and children. Oh, let me get a quote from Shelly. So super cute. It's her rural community. The project is publicly accessible. It served an underserved community. It collaborates with the community and the school. And so it's hitting all of these points and it's within the $5,000 budget. So that's a great example of a project that just needs like one lead applicant, does have collaboration, but can totally be done with $5,000. And then here's one that is more collaborative, big time, something you've probably heard of before, Sunny Days. So that's Virginia Seitz, the founder of Sunny Days, and that is a new mural festival dedicated to women in the arts. And so, as I'm sure you can imagine, it's a huge project. The budget was $50,000, if not more, and we were only able to give it $5,000. So if she were able to apply again or something like that, she would definitely apply for Powerhouse, because this is a big Powerhouse project. Now, this is hugely ambitious, and a lot of your projects are not going to be this big, but I wanted to kind of show you like a smaller scale and like big scale, and hopefully yours falls somewhere in between. But she has, a committee of 18 plus people. She's working with 30 plus artists, paying artists. It's a full-blown festival, and I wish we could have funded it more, to be totally honest. But projects like this, yeah, like you're not going to lose. Like that's huge. That's huge for Oklahoma. And I think I want to show you one more here. This is a good one too. So Lauren Rosenfeld, this is Place. She lives in Norman, but she wanted to do a project in this town called Little Axe. So another rural community. And the project centers around creating this walkthrough that incorporates poetry and art from local artists in Little Axe. So imagine a meandering pathway amongst flora and greens. Enjoy art and poetry created by your neighbors. Learn about this land's ecology and history. Connect with the community. This place is about where Lauren Rosenfeld grew up and the people and cultures hidden amongst central Oklahoma, post oak, and blackjack forest. So this is these are images from another project she did, but this project is also, she had to do a little fundraising. So she went a little beyond the $5,000, but still that was enough for her to commission artists, work with artists, create a little sign, create a community garden, and create these with her husband. She created these posts where it's going to be bigger than this, but it has these art and poetry from these local artists and things like that. So it really serves the community. It serves a rural community. It's not just about her, it's about the impact. So those are some examples, and you can look at all the examples if you want by going to thrivegrants.org. So remember, I threw a lot at you, but keep it simple. Start when you're writing these proposals, keep it simple. Think about what you need and then start building upon that. So why this project? Why do you even want to do this? Why now? You know, if the reasons are like, I want to do this project because I want $10,000. Like, it's not a good reason. You're probably going to have a hard time writing about that. It's got to be something you're actually passionate about. So why now? It's going to look really, you know, interesting to see your story of like, I've been wanting funding for this project for years and I haven't found the avenue for it. Like, Thrive is specifically for reaching people that haven't been able to find that traditional funding. Why is this important to you? So are you passionate about it? What are the core ideas behind this project? Make sure you're answering all our questions. That's really, really important. What's your vision? What do you see? Like, how do you see this coming about? What does it look like when it's all said and done or when it's happening? What do you hope to achieve by doing this? Like, hopefully you hope to achieve something. And what's your goal? And how will you execute it? So not only do I want to do this thing, but how can I do this? And that'll help you build your proposal. So now I want to talk about frequently asked questions. And Wendy Thomas, I want to answer your question real quick. July 16th, 2023 is for the next award year, but this year, 2022, July 16th is 2021 recipients and the announcement of 2022 recipients.
Yeah, my question was like, which one are we required to go to, the 2022 or the 23 or both?
If you get it, you'd be required to go to the 23. You'd be invited to go to the 22 though.
Got it.
And let's look at some frequently asked questions. I do recommend that you read all through this page, but I'm just going to kind of glaze, what's the word I'm looking for? Graze past it, because you can read it. Like, what are Thrive grants? What's the timeline? You want to make sure if you're applying for anything, you're hyper aware of the timeline because you're committing yourself for a whole year. So you don't want to accept an arts residency and be gone next year when you applied for this grant. So it's hard to know where you're going to be in a year, but hopefully when we give you these timelines, you can kind of try. And who selects the grant winners? It's a committee that includes local artists, arts administrators, and a former Thrive recipient. So someone just like you. And someone from the national regional regranting family. So we pick someone from outside the state that works at one of those 1 of 32 regranting partners. How are applications scored? We talked about the scoring matrix. We break it down. You can see the full rubric. What types of projects are funded? Celebrates risks. What type of projects will not be funded? Okay, we've already talked about a lot of this. Public accessibility, we've talked about. So selected projects should be accessible to the public via process, production, presentation, or publication. So it doesn't have to be like here in person. It could be virtual, like as long as it's somehow being presented to the public. Can I request funding for my solo exhibition? No, traditional exhibitions will not be funded. You can apply for a creative projects grant for $1,500 if you wanted to fund your solo exhibition. So it's not like a hard no, it's just you can't apply for Thrive. You can apply for something else if you're looking to fund your solo exhibition. Now, I do want to say there are certainly exceptions. For example, artists taking an innovative or thought-provoking approach to the exhibition platform would be considered. For example, Amy Sanders is working on a really collaborative exhibition. And it's incorporating interviews from people in the community with disabilities and using Braille to communicate those disabilities in her exhibition. So it's highly collaborative. So certain things like that will be considered, but just like my solo 2D show, like I've just been working towards it. You should apply for a creative project. Can I include our son? Can the grant funds be used to pay me? Yes. We detail in the budget how much we expect. How many applications can you submit as a lead applicant? Only one will be accepted for each lead applicant, but this individual is not prohibited from collaborating on another project. We know Oklahoma's small and we don't want to keep you from making Oklahoma great. So you could be a collaborator on another project and be a lead applicant on your own project. It's a lot of work, but you could do it. What if we're an artist collective? Yes, we encourage collaboration. We want you to collaborate, but you will need to select one artist to be the lead applicant, the one that's mostly responsible for everything. I'm an independent freelance curator. Am I eligible to apply for this grant? Yes. We recently opened up our grants, including this one, to include independent curators and arts writers. So you can make visual art centric projects and be a curator. You're working in the visual art world. So yes, independent curators may apply. But if you identify as both an artist and a curator, only submit one application. Only one will be accepted. And you do have to consider what it looks like if you send in multiple applications when we basically ask you to just submit one. It looks sloppy and rushed and like you're just trying to grab money. So I'm an artist with the LLC. We've already talked about that. Okay, video content. This question comes up. I'm submitting video content and I see there's restrictions on how much watch time to provide. How strict is this rule? You are technically allowed to submit video content without highlighting a maximum of 3 minutes for review, but you must also consider the impact of not meeting the requested parameters. If you do not follow the instructions, it tends to make your application look rushed and unprofessional. We strongly encourage you to edit your clips down to the suggested time. Okay, this one comes up a lot too. I am a recipient of another OBAC program award. Can I still apply? At this time, we will not require any stipulations on who can apply, even for those who have won awards from OBAC in the past year, outside of the ones who got Thrive last year. So it's a lot for us to try to keep up with who got this, who got that. And Thrive is so different that we're just going to say, you know, even if you got a quarterly grant, they are separate. They are two different. After the waiting period, can I reapply with the same project proposal? No. You may not reapply with the exact copy of past proposals, but you might look for a way to expand upon previous projects. It's difficult to imagine that a new proposal that shifts its focus in such a way would be identical to past iterations. If you have questions, just ask me. So can I apply if I'm not a US citizen? This is an interesting question we saw with a lot of the other regranting partners, but common answer we got was yes. You can apply, but the lead applicant must have a social security number and have held residence in Oklahoma for at least 12 months. So, and people have asked me this question before too, and I didn't have the answer before, so I thought to throw it in there. Do I have to pay taxes on grant funding? Yes. The IRS considers grant funding to be income, which means you could owe taxes. Your filing status, individual or LLC, can change how you report your funding. We recommend doing research. I added a link and viewing the instructions on page 3 of Form 990 to learn more on how to properly file the funds that will be used in your project. So we don't want this to burn y'all. Okay, so that's the presentation. I am here to help you out. My name is Anj. You can jot down my information. You can text or email me, or even call me if you want. And now, since we've gone about, a little longer than I thought, I think about 45 minutes. So if anybody has questions, you can either drop them in the chat or just start talking. Wendy?
So I have a question about the IRS. I believe the project that me and my collaborators are thinking about doing, we've also applied to OVAC to be our fiscal sponsor. So if OVAC is this fiscal sponsor of the grant and the check isn't written to us, but you write the checks for our direct expenses, does that avoid that?
So you're a fiscal sponsor, or OVAC is a fiscal sponsor for a project that you have,
Uh-huh.
and you're wanting to apply for this grant.
Yeah.
Is that a conflict of interest?
Actually, I hadn't asked that, although that's an interesting question too.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was your original question?
So my actual original question was if OVAC serves as the fiscal sponsor for the grant and you don't actually write a check to me or my collaborators, does that avoid the tax piece? So
Yeah, I do believe so. If you're acting underneath a fiscal sponsorship, then yes, it's donations. But it gets a little complicated because lead applicant is the one that needs to fill out the form. And I'm not really sure there, but like we can't pay OVAC, we are OVAC. You know what I'm saying? So like we have to pay the lead applicant, and then the lead applicant has to manage those funds to the best of their knowledge.
Okay. So that's typically what you do, is write one check and then that lead applicant pays their bills. Okay, yes. I understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Shelby.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. I have a quick question. My highly collaborative exhibition opens on July 5th, a few days after the period of the grant award. Should I wait to reapply, or do you have some flexibility about that?
So your exhibition opens on July 5th.
July 5th, 2023.
Oh, 2023. Oh.
No, it's like this close.
Yeah, we are flexible, and especially if it feels like there's a really concrete ending point that's right outside of the parameters, I'm pretty sure we could be flexible there. We've already had to be a little flexible with 2021 recipients, so.
And then just another question is, my collaborators are in process. So when I write the grant, I'm in conversation with people. So I can give you bios of the people I'm in conversation with. I have a co-curator that I'm working with that's solid. How do I handle that with the application?
So you said in progress. What does that mean?
So we're in conversation. So we're back and forth talking about what the project is, their contribution, whether they want to be a part of it.
You need to identify who your solid collaborators are. And when I say collaborators, like if you are doing a collaborative exhibition and you're like maybe interviewing people and those people haven't been identified yet, that can be just a part of your proposal. But if there's people you're actively working with that are possibly getting paid by this grant and working with you to put on the project, those people should be identified. And those people we want a bio from. But as far as people collaborating on the exhibition, maybe like contributing creatively or possibly informing work, and I feel like that could be more so the community impact portion. But I would think I would need to know more information about your project to answer that more properly.
I'll be in touch.
Okay. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, we can wrap up. And I thank you all for joining me today and learning about this cool second year of Thrive Grants. And this is going to be on YouTube as well as embedded on our website. So if you need to revisit it for any reason, and don't forget about those office hours by appointment, as well as the drop-in office hours. Please tell your friends about this grant if they don't already know. They're going to need at least a month to prepare for it. So tell your friends now. So if they're interested, they can start the groundwork of figuring out how to apply for it. So this is, once again, this is a great time to be doing this. And I think you might not have as much competition as you think. So, all right. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and end the call. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks.